Good evening, all. Peace is not found after success, it is what makes success meaningful. With this thought, I warmly welcome all the respected members, students, professionals, and participants joining us today for this enriching live webcast organized by Beneficiary Schemes Directorate ICI on the theme of Debit the Stress, Credit the Peace, Alci's Life Ledger. I am extremely delighted to extend a heartfelt welcome to our esteemed speaker, Ms. Bhavna Kumari ma'am, whose valuable experience and inspiring insights will undoubtedly guide us towards a more mindful and balanced approach to life and work. We sincerely thank her for graciously joining us today and sharing her wisdom with the ICA fraternity. With this, I'm handing over this to CA, Miss Bhavna Kumari ma'am.
Thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. And thank you so much for this opportunity to present my insights, my thoughts on this live webcast on debit distress and trade the peace or CA's life leisure. Let me quickly share my screen and start the webcast. I request all of you to be active learners. When I say active learners, I want you to take notes of the key learnings which we are covering during the webcast and participate in the quick poll which we will be doing just after this slide and in the coming slides as well. And also, I request all of you to participate in the case studies as well. So, as you can see, the topic itself is debit the stress, credit the peace, and this is about our life's leisure, right? We are actually trained. We all are professionals. We all are expert in our fields, and we are trained to balance financial levels. But somewhere you'll see between deadlines, compliance cycles, and a constant loop of the pressure, what is happening? Many of us, many professionals, we stop balancing our own life ledger. So stress keeps getting debited, but peace is rarely created back. And over time, the imbalance does not show in the books first, it shows in the mind. In our profession, deadlines don't end. I'm sure you will relate to the statement. In our professions, deadline don't end. They are temporary emergencies. They are not temporary agencies. They are permanent because they are going to exist. Because what is happening, they rotate endlessly. What is happening in our life? Listed companies audit seasons and other corporate and non-corporate audit season starts. Once it ends, the tax audit season begins, and then tax notices starts, right? And what happens? Then GST begins. When GST ends, there is something else already which is waiting for us. So, and I'm sure we all are relating to this. The finishing line in our profession is just an illusion because it just moves. So the real question is, are we managing deadlines or deadlines are managing our lives? We need to reflect on this. We need to ponder on some other questions as well. And I want you to reflect on every deadline debits are two invisible assets. These are attention and energy. What are you creating back? Just think about it. Our professional leisure may be balanced, but is our life's leisure balanced? Let's deep dive into the webcast today. And we are going to touch upon many things which will be, I would say, it will be a complete transformation in terms of the way we look at the work life balance, the way we look at debating the stress and creating the peace. What are the things which is managing the balance between these two? So let me quickly share my screen and I will show you a quick poll because I want to hear from you. And I'll show you a QR code here, which we need to scan. And you will have to just click on the right option which resonates with you. It seems my slide is stuck. Just give me a moment. There's a question which will appear on the screen, and you will have to click on the right option. I'm sure you can see it now. You can go to slido.com, scan the QR code, and just you need to answer the question. I hope you can see here. It says that if your life ledger was audited today, what would you show the biggest deficit? And there are options to it. There are four options. One is mental clarity, another is energy, the third one is personal time, and the fourth one is inner peace. You will have to scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and enter the code hash 1202910. I repeat, there are two ways to enter in this poll. One is either you can scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and you can enter the code hash 1202910. The question is, if your life ledger was audited today, what would show the biggest deficit? Is it the way we think? Is it about the mental clarity? Is it about energy? Is it about personal time? Or is it about inner peace? Where do you see the biggest deficit? Do you see in one area? You see in multiple areas? So I just want to hear from you. You'll have to just click on the right option which truly resonates with you. You'll have to scan the QR code with your mobile phone, as I said, or you can go to slido.com, enter the code, and you can select the right option which truly resonates with you. I want to hear this from you. That what are your thoughts? What do you think? Where is the biggest deficit? Ah, there are two options which is very dominant. Okay, the third is also there. Thank you so much for responses. Thank you so much for your participation. I really liked it. So I can see here mental clarity, personal time, inner peace, energy. This is almost all, and two are very predominant as of now: mental clarity and personal time. We will be talking about all these, okay? As you're participating, the ranking is changing. So mental clarity is the topmost, right? So which is very clear that when we are auditing our life ledger, we see the biggest deficit in terms of clarity in taking decisions, thinking clearly, mental clarity. Definitely, the all four options are something which truly resonates with all of us. Thank you so much once again for the response. Now, another question is, what would you, again, same way to participate, scan the QR code and enter, go to sire.com, enter the code, and you can write one word to the answer of the question. What would, okay, I can see here without even reading. Thank you so much. It is giving me energy. And I'm sure when you're actively participating, you are completely involved and you absorb the learnings and you can implement those learnings in your real life. So, what would you like to credit back into your life ledger today's inner peace? Thank you so much. Can I see some more response? Is it okay? Mental clarity you want to credit back? Energy you want to credit back? Wow, I can see those responses coming up. Can I see some more responses? There's a word cloud, and the you can enter just one word or whatever word is coming to you, and it will form a cloud here, and we can see the responses here. As we can see here, three responses: energy, mental clarity, inner peace. Okay, what else? What else would you like to trade back? Is it personal time? Is it more focused time you want trade back in your life ledger? Is it more about energy or attention or making sharper decisions or more family time, more personal time you want? Okay, peace. Peace is coming up something which we want to trade back. Great, thank you so much. And with this, we are moving on. So, this was something which gives us a trigger in our mind that if we are going to audit our life ledger today, we are going to, we would like to trade back many things which probably as of now we have not been able to do so. But then, yes, we can do it. Now, I'm showing you a slide. I'm sure very clearly it is visible what is written here. This mental bandwidth. What is mental bandwidth? We'll see what is mental bandwidth. This is something which is really important, and this plays a very important role when we talk about work life balance, when we are talking about debiting the stress and creating the peace, right? So, what is actually mental bandwidth? We'll see this. Mental bandwidth is our ability, is our capacity to think clearly, focus deeply, and make good decisions. Okay, make decisions, which is because decision making is one of the very critical component of our professional life. We all know, right? So let me repeat, what is mental bandwidth if I have to define? And this is something which is very important, we all should understand. Mental bandwidth is like a cognitive capital. So it's our brain's capacity to think clearly, focus deeply, and make good decisions. What happens actually, even when we stop working physically, when we are not on the laptop, the work runs, it continues in the mind. And I'm sure you can relate to this. What happens there when you are not working physically, but the work is continuing in your mind? In that case, a real imbalance begins, same as which happens in our life ledger. So the real imbalance begins. It is not in the ledger, actually, in the financial ledger which we work, but the real imbalance is in mental bandwidth. That is our cognitive capital. And if I have to define, as I said, cognitive capital or mental bandwidth is our brain's capacity to think clearly, focus deeply, and make good decisions. Just like the same as internet bandwidth. I'm sure you know what is internet bandwidth. Internet bandwidth is actually, it determines that how much data can flow at one point of time, right? Similarly, mental bandwidth determines how much thinking our brain can handle effectively. Our brain, our brain has a limited processing capacity. And when there are too many thoughts, too many tasks, too many stressors are those things which create stress. If there are too many stressors which is active, the capacity gets overloaded. And what happens when our bandwidth is low? When our bandwidth is fully occupied, then we struggle to focus. We can't focus on any task. We take long time, we take longer to complete simple tasks, and we mentally feel exhausted, tired, even when we have not done too much, and we become irritable. So it's not that you don't have the time. We have time, but then our brain does not have the space. Why? Because we are interrupted by so many things: notification, WhatsApp message, calls, uh, any meeting which is going on in your brain, which has to happen tomorrow, maybe a difficult conversation with your team member, a client, a new client whom you're going to meet. So there's so many things which is running inside your brain, inside your brain, that it is choking your bandwidth. So what should we do? Should we stop working? No, that is not the way. So, what is the way? We'll see that. So, first, let's understand this mental bandwidth. So, imagine if you're sitting to review a file, part of your brain is thinking about another client, pending email, tomorrow's deadline. So, what is the result? The result is, even though you're working on that file, you're reviewing that file, but then your mental bandwidth is divided. That's where, even after work, when the work is ended physically, your mind continuously processes it. And most of us, most professionals, we don't realize how much cognitive capital is leaking every day, how much bandwidth is mental bandwidth is leaking every day. I'll give you one more analogy to understand this. It's like we have 20 browsers, 20 browser tabs open in our mind. Even if we are using only one, all of them are consuming the memory, right? I hope you can relate to and you can understand this. It's like 20 browsers tabs open in our mind. Even if we're using only one, all of them are consuming memory. Most professionals don't realize how much cognitive capital is leaking every day. So work life balance is not just how many hours you're working. It is not about the number of hours you're working. It is also not about dividing that 24 hours into two slots. Most of us, we think if we divide 24 hours into three slots, 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, which is 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of recreation, our work life is balanced completely. No. It is not about how much time or how many hours you work. It's about how much of your mental bandwidth is constantly occupied. You don't just carry work in your schedule, you're carrying this work in your mental bandwidth. I want to ask you a question. Since you're attending this live webcast, I want to ask you how many open tabs are running in your mind? Just reflect. How many open tabs are running in your mind? There are many. Maybe a pending email, maybe a client meeting you have, maybe some task which is pending, right? So now you can relate to how much mental bandwidth is occupied. Your mental bandwidth is occupied. And how can we come out of this? We'll see those solutions also. So there we are going to talk about two important resources here, two important invisible sources, I would say, and assets, I would say, and and how can we manage those, and how can we actually how can we optimize our mental bandwidth? We'll see this in the coming slides. You can see here on the slide also that how the mental bandwidth is overloaded. On the left side, there are too many interruptions or inputs, and we're constantly switching between tasks. So what is happening? Our bandwidth is getting choked. So how can we optimize? By having a slot, or by having a slot for the deep work. When I'm saying slot means maybe we can dedicate 1 hour or 2 hours in the day, maybe in the morning hours, or depending on your energy level. You can have dedicated 2 hours of complete work, deep work, where there should not be any interruption, right? Until unless is something really, really important. But then everything can't be important. Setting our priorities, as I said, deep work where you are completely focused, setting boundaries that these 2 hours I need to focus on reviewing this file. I need to finish this. Intentional break, that is also important. So these are the ways through which we can optimize our mental bandwidth. And how this is going to help us, I'll make you understand through the case study also, and you will be able to relate to this. So you can see at the bottom here also, turn off the noise means turn off the interruptions. Every notification does not need your attention. Every message, every call, every email does not need your attention immediately or attention at all. So we need to focus on what matters. We need to protect our deep work time. When I'm saying deep work means work in which you are 110% completely focused. Take strategic breaks. Why these are important? We will see this also, and guard your mental energy. So this is how we can optimize our cognitive capital. We can optimize our mental bandwidth. So and you can also relate to when you start working, what all happens. One phone call you receive from the client, another call you receive from the team member. There is something else which comes between. You receive a call for, okay, should we go out for lunch? So what happens in that process? We are not able to focus completely on our work. And we get to feel that, oh, I've worked for maybe 10 hours, 11 hours. But then since we were not completely focused, we get fatigued also, and the productivity is not up to the mark. It is not the same as we were expecting to uh, do, or to finish, or to accomplish in the in during the day, right? So with this, let's move on to another slide, and I will show you there is another concept called as attention residue. We'll also talk about uh, how can we optimize our productivity by using two invisible assets, and these two assets are energy and attention. I'll show you here. So these are the core assets in your life ledger. These are two things we're talking about. One is energy, another is attention. You can take a note because we will be focusing in these two invisible assets, and this is something which is really important because These are the core assets of our life ledger. And every interruption which we get is actually debits attention, and every recovery practice is the energy. Right. So let's talk about the attention energy. Let's see that what is first. What is energy in plain simple words? Energy is actually our mental and physical capacity to work effectively. Right. You can work 10 hours, which is available. But if our energy is low, even simple tasks, it feels really difficult. And our brain performance depends on many factors like sleep, breaks, stress levels. Prolonged stress, if we have, it results into fatigue. When you have 20 browser tabs open in your mind every time, day, night, 24 by 7, 365 a days. So what is happening? Your brain is getting fatigued, and when you're in a constant state of stress, there is a hormone called as cortisol, which gets this called as stress hormone, which gets released. And this interferes with our repairing system. Our body does not get repaired or recovered, and this results into many diseases. We'll talk about cortisol also in the coming slide. So, the prolonged stress leads to fatigue. Fatigue is when we feel exhausted, we're tired, and we are not able to make good decisions. We are not getting mental clarity if we are in a state of prolonged stress. So energy actually determines that how well we can work, not just how long you work. I repeat, our energy determines that how well we can work. It is not just that how long you can work, right? So what is attention? Another important asset we're talking about, another invisible core asset of our life ledger is attention. What is attention? Attention is when our mind is focused at any moment. Even if your energy is high, for example, but if your attention is scattered, if your attention is fragmented, your output will still be very low, because every interruption, every notification which you see, every Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, or WhatsApp, any notification, any call, any message which you're getting when you are completely focused, that creates attention residue. We'll see what is this attention residue. You can take a note of this word, attention residue, or we can call this as unclosed mental entries. Unclosed mental entries. And as I said, in every interruption creates attention residue or unclosed mental entries. It reduces the depth of thinking. Attention determines what quality of work you produce. This is very important asset. And if your energy is low, you cannot focus. If your attention is fragmented, you cannot perform. So, these two factors which we are talking about, both the factors are really important, energy and attention. We can have a balance if both energy and attention should be in control. What is the trap? The trap is if these two components are not in control, even if you work for 10 hours, 11 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, no amount of time will ever feel enough. Because I've quoted here on the slide here, if your energy is low, even 2 hours of work, when you do, it feels that you are really tired. You don't feel like working because you're low in energy. And when your attention is fragmented, when you're getting interrupted during your work, even 10 hours, 12 hours of work feels highly unproductive. Although you get to feel that you have been working entire day, you were very busy entire day. However, the output is very low. So, what is the key takeaway? The key takeaway is it is not a time management problem. Work life balance is not a time management problem. It is more about managing your energy, it is more about managing your attention. Because I was telling you that most of us we think that if you're able to manage our time effectively, we are done. Our we will be able to manage, we'll be able to balance our stress and peace in our life's leisure. No, it is not. If you're able to manage our energy and attention, we can definitely do that. So the work-life balance is not about managing the clock, managing the time. It is more about managing the brain state. When I say brain state, means you need to check, are we in a control state or are we in a prolonged state of stress? Right? So the flaw here in the myth was about the time management. It is assuming that all the hours are equal. All 12 hours of working has the same capacity. No, because our attention varies, our energy level varies. Why is our attention varies? Maybe in the morning hours when we are completely focused, there the output is maximum. We may not be able to perform deep work entire day. Our energy level is also high in the morning, but it depends on from person to person. For some, they may feel energetic in the evening, but then it is not throughout the day. There is a certain span of time where you feel that you're highly energetic, where you're completely focused. So the flaw is that in the concept where we think that work-life balance is about time management, they we think that all the hours are equal. No, it is not. The fact is that the high when we are completely focused, when we are high in energy, the high focus gives us higher yield, higher output, and we can finish all the tasks maybe in 2 hours, maybe in 4 focused hours, right? So it is not the same. The balance is more about how are you managing your invisible assets or the core assets. This is energy and attention management. Two things as I've been referring to, and we will be coming back to this because all the other ideas, all the other concept, it actually moves behind that only attention and energy. Because if you see, if it is good sleep, no interruptions, work finishes in 1 hour. If you're tired and there are a lot of phone interruptions, the same amount of work it may take even 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So the task is not changing. The task did not change. What is changed? Your energy and attention. So most people they try to solve this, as I said, solve this problem that if I work for longer time, I'll stretch my day. People say that I'll stretch my day. Okay. But you cannot solve an energy attention problem with more time because the balance is not about managing your calendar or managing your schedule. It is more about managing your capacity to perform. You don't need more hours. You need better energy, sharper attention. Because if your energy is low and your attention is fragmented, broken, even 12 hours will not feel enough. You will, and I'm sure you must have experienced this. Some days you work 12 hours and still feel behind. And some days in 4 focus hours, you finish everything important. So, what is the difference? The difference is not the time, it is energy and attention. So, work life balance is not a time management problem, it is an energy management and attention control problem. I hope you have taken a note of this because this is something which is very important, which we are referring to. Okay, I have made a 4 quadrants here, a matrix is here. You can see here on the x-axis, you can see attention, and on the y-axis, you can see here energy, right? So I'll quickly talk about these 4 quadrants. You can see here, if you are low in energy and you're completely focused, the energy is low, in that case, you are trying to attempt to perform deep work, means focused work. So what is happening? But then you're not able to continue for longer because you're low in energy. So you're slow, but then you're still trying. When you're low in energy and your attention is fragmented, scattered, so both are missing. Attention is also missing, energy is also missing. So what is happening? You're feeling tired and you are highly unproductive. Both. So the worst is the 4th quadrant, which is low energy, scattered attention. The best one, the highly productive one, is if you're when you're high energy, when you're deeply focused, then the flow state is achieved. Flow state is a state where you don't keep a track of time. We don't even realize that the time is passed by, right? So you're in a state of flow. It happens when we are doing something which we are really passionate about. Maybe and it also happens when you're watching a movie which we have really liking, or listening to music, which we are really liking. So in that case, a flow state is achieved. So this could be even for 2 hours if we are in a state of peak performance. This is highly productive. Now, the scattered attention and high energy, you are busy, but then your energy is high and you're getting interrupted by phone calls, as I said, by someone came to see you or emails, or you're doing many tasks, multitasking. Multitasking is a myth, it's a complete myth. What happens in multitasking? We are not working on many tasks at one point of time. It is not. Because our brain is not made to do that. We can focus on one task at one point of time. So what happens? That you're switching from task A to task B to task C to task D. And your energy is getting depleted. So the stress is high and the productivity, the output is low. So, out of all these four quadrants, I would suggest spend at least 2 hours in quadrant one with high energy and complete focus if you really want to be productive, if you really want to be successful, I would say, because you can complete all your tasks within hours, which may require an entire day, which may require 10 hours, 12 hours. And if you're in this quadrant, you can finish this in within 4 hours, within 2 hours, maybe within 3 hours. So this is something where you need to completely focus on without any interruption. And there are ways to do it. We'll see how we can do it. There are many ways to do it. Now, I'm going to talk about a concept I'm sure you must have heard of, the law of diminishing returns. You must have heard of in economics, but then there is another concept called as similar to that is the law of diminishing productivity. So, what is this law of diminishing productivity? This talks about a concept where, okay, before I move ahead with the concept, I want you to scan this QR code, and I'll share this link in the chat box also, where you will just click on the link and you will be redirected to a Google form. And I also share my screen. Just read a paragraph is there. Just read that paragraph and answer the question, and then we'll talk about the concept, the law of diminishing return. So, two ways: either you can scan the QR code, you will get to see the case study, or I will share, and I'm sharing this link also in the chat box. You can click on the link, you will be redirected to the Google form. Just read the case study and answer the question. I want you to participate. There is no right or wrong answer, and your name is not getting published. It is only for the discussion purpose. It is only to make this session more lively and more interactive. Let me share the link in the chat box in a moment. Let me do that to be able to see. Okay, so you can click on the link two ways, as I said. In the meantime, I will also show you the case study here. Okay, I can see the response. And I will read this out for you. Okay, I'll read this out for you. It is case one, the 11:30 p.m. error. This is about the situation. It's 11:30 p.m. This is something which we can definitely relate to. The title is the 11:30 p.m. error. Is 11:30 p.m. You have been working since morning. You are reviewing a file, maybe audit, working papers, or a tax computation. At this point, you are tired, but you tell yourself, "This is the last review I'll do." So you go through the numbers. Everything looks fine, and you just close the file. Next day, client calls and see what is happening here. When the client is called, there's an and says there is an error, something small but really critical. Because as we know, even the placement of decimal will change the whole meaning, right? So now what happens? We are spending another 2 to 3 stressful hours fixing it, explaining it, managing the situation, apologizing, right? So now, what is the error? What do you think? Where is the error? What is the real reason behind the error? Can you see some more responses here in the response box? You are not required to enter your email ID or your name. We just want to see the responses. We want to hear from you. That's it. No judgment here. So, one response is the real reason behind the error is mainly due to, okay, let me reload. Can you see some more response? Mainly due to pressure of files done on due date and lost the process of review. Okay, good. Thank you so much for the response. So one is mainly due to the pressure of files. Okay, the pressure of files it is on the due date because it was done on the last date. So the person has lost the process of review. So that could be one of the reason it says. What do you think? What are the other things which may be a possibility? Because it is in the night, what the person is doing, the person is very tired. Still, he has to finish this task and he's thinking, okay, this is the last review which I will do, and it is end of the story. Right. But then what do you think? What is the story here? Do you think the story is that the person should have given more time? Do you think so? I want to see some more response and then I'll share what is the right reason behind it. Okay, as you saw, the case is something which we all relate to and which we all mostly, most of us, we do this. That when we are sitting in the night because we had to stretch because the deadline was today, I was doing something else. I now have to finish the task. So now, what is happening by 11:30? We are dead tired. But then still, we want to, since the deadline is today, I want to finish this task. So I will just start reviewing the file. And maybe I may skip a very small error, but that becomes a big thing for the client, for us also, when we get to know about it. And then we end up apologizing, same thing. Okay, sorry, could not see, missed it. And you again spend 2 to 3 hours in fixing the error. Because most of us think we had no time during the day, so I had to rush during the night, right? So what is happening here? Just listen to me carefully and think about it. Relate this to our situation, I would suggest. Then the real learning happens. So in this case, when the severe cognitive fatigue sets in, this is a case of severe cognitive fatigue. Cognitive means anything related to brain. Fatigue is tiredness. When we are completely tired, when we are dead, tired. So in that case, the brain lacks the energy, the brain lacks the metabolic energy, which is very much required to process the deep analytical problems. Because our work really is, it actually involves the analysis, the analytical problems we need to resolve, the decisions we need to take. So when we are tired, our brain actually lacks the metabolic energy, which is required to process deep analytical problems. So it just does not have the fuel. It simply can't do the heavy lifting anymore. So what is brain doing? In order to conserve energy, the brain starts taking shortcuts. It misses the small, the nuanced details, and the brain assumes the correctness. So what feels to us like dedication, that okay, I did not miss my deadline, I'm highly dedicated, or what feels to us like just one more hour of hard work, it actually becomes very low quality work and that creates more work. Let me repeat this important line. For us, what feels to us like dedication or just 1 hour of work or 45 minutes of work, it actually becomes low quality works that creates more work. And this is the trap many high performing professionals fall into. Most of us, we do fall into this trap. Working more to resolve a problem that is actually being created by overworking. You're overworking, you're stretching, and what you're doing, you're creating work for yourself because Our brain is lacking energy to analyze the problem, and it is missing the details, the small details. And our brain is assuming that this is correct. Okay, so if we step back and reflect and think, the real question is, you will come to know the real question is not how do I manage more work in less time. It is not that. The real question is how do I protect my energy and attention so that the work which I'm doing is actually effective, is actually error free. I'm sure this has happened with many of us. And if this has ever happened with you, just I would suggest just acknowledge it to yourself. Just think that okay, what was the reason? Now you can make out that what was the reason, right? So what happens? I will quickly tell you what happens in case of the burnout or when we're highly stressed. I'm not teaching here any biology per se. I don't want you to remember the technical terms, but then only for the sake of understanding how it works. I'll quickly tell you our brain has two parts, I would say. First is, one is thinking brain, another is survival brain. Thinking brain is more about, it is also called as prefrontal cortex. It comes in it's the front part of the brain. It is also called as prefrontal cortex. I don't want you to remember the prefrontal cortex. I just want you to remember or to understand that there is one part called as thinking brain, which talks about, which takes decision, analyzes numbers, which gives you logic, it makes decisions, this spots errors, which is very much required in our work area. And this works optimally when it is in a focused state, when it is in a regulated state. Now, there is another part which is called as survival brain. This is also called as amygdala. So, what is the survival brain doing? Survival brain, it actually saves us from the threat. This was designed, this is, we have during the earlier stage when we used to see the tiger. So, that was a threat. So, this brain, this helped us to protect ourselves from the threat. So this is actually our stress response system, and this activates when the deadline's low, when the deadlines are approaching, when the clients change, and when the work is piling up. And what happens, this releases a hormone, this releases a stress hormone called as cortisol. And cortisol, this prevents our body from getting repaired. So, what is happening when there is a prolonged state of stress, constant deadlines? It keeps the survival brain on, which means the cortisol is getting pumped. And the thinking brain, it actually tires out, and our ability to process the minute details, the complex CA work which we do, it actually degrades when we are working. So, when we are in a state where we are just thinking that okay, I'm dedicated, I will complete my work, you are actually doing, instead of benefiting yourself, you are actually doing harm to yourself, because the law of diminishing productivity tells you that we are we reach when we reach a peak performance, after that our performance declines. Does not matter how much time we are giving, right? So initially, as you start working, you can see here our effectiveness increases. Then you're reaching a point, your peak cognitive performance, because your brain's decision system, which is our thinking system, it actually gets tired. This is when what is happening? What happens? You're just working and working. You've reached a peak performance and still you kept working. So what is happening? You're rereading the same line. Have you ever realized this? That when we are tired, we are rereading the same line because we're not understanding that. Why? Because of the fatigue. So you miss small, but then these are critical errors, and you take long to make simple decisions. So after a point, you're not adding value. After this peak performance, you're not adding value. You're adding time, and you're adding time without effectiveness. And beyond this, what happens? Error increase, rework increases, which actually pushes your total working hours even higher. This is how the cycle continues. So what is happening? More work, less effectiveness. Less effectiveness, more errors. When it's more errors, it is again creating more work because the client is coming back to you. It is saying that, okay, what you did, we appreciate that you met the deadline. However, there's a again you spend 2 hours, 3 hours. So what happens? High performers, they don't work till they're exhausted. They work till they are effective. High performers work with intense focus. It is not about working for longer hours. We can see here. So these hours are only for the reference. This may differ for different people. So as you've started your day, you produce your best work. As you go up, this is optimal focus, maximum output. But then after this point, your productivity decreases. Whether you work for 10 hours, 12 hours, your mistakes increase and it is creating more work for you. So you can see it is very clearly explained here. In the beginning, when you're starting, your mind is sharp. You are focusing on your work. You're high energy, high attention, but then your brain needs a break. Then still you keep pushing. Now you've reached a limit. Once the peak performance you've reached, as you're working more, you're achieving less because you are more prone to making errors and you end up producing less output. So we should work till the time we can reach our peak performance. Once the mental fatigue sets in that case, our mistakes, our errors increases. So productivity, this clearly shows more hour does not mean more output. More hours does not mean it does not mean that we are producing more. Our productivity is not about how long you're working. It is more about how well your mind can perform. This is one of the very important paradigm shift which we are having right now. Because most of us we think that how long it depends, our productivity depends on how long we work. No, it is not that. Our productivity is not about how long we work, it is more about how well your mind can perform, right? With this, I want to show you a small video. And give me a moment. Please.
Hey guys, it's John Barrett with Level Up Your Leadership, where I'm going to help you with visual leadership lessons so that you can get better in all that you do. Today, I want to talk to you about the law of diminishing productivity. Here's what I know about you. You want to be more productive. You want to get more done. You want to be more successful. But we've got so many things on our plate. There's so many things that we've got going on that we tend to lose productivity. I don't know if you ever felt this way or if you feel it right now, but you feel like there's just more to do than there is time to get it all done. And that is a common thing that we all face as leaders. So what I want to do today is help you with an idea of how can you be more productive. Now, there's a little secret here because you're only going to be as productive as intentional as you are about it. You're never going to rise above your level of intentionality. If you don't get serious about being productive, you're not going to be productive. If you don't get the right tools, the right thinking, and understand what's going on, then you're not going to be productive. It's not just about getting more done. It's about getting the right things done. So a little thought that I want to give you here, this chart. Now over here, we're going to talk about our return and then our effort. So the effort that we put in to our productivity, to our tasks, to our projects, all that we need to get done, this is our effort. This is going to be the return that we get. Now, there's this bell curve that we've come to find about productivity. And highly productive people are very intentional about this. But if you're not intentional about it, again, you'll never rise above your level of intentionality when it comes to productivity. So you've got to understand that highly productive people, they live and die by this bell curve. This is very important for them to determine when they hit this critical mass point where they're at their highest productivity, when their effort is going and the return is at the highest. Now, let me kind of give you an idea of what happens here. As we begin to put effort into our task, our day, our projects, we begin to put our effort in. There's a return that starts to come as we put in effort. Obviously, the more effort and the more work you put into something, hopefully you're getting a good return. As we rise and we're going up this kind of bell curve, this is what happens. Low producers, right? Low producers, they stop right about here. So they never get to the highest return of their productivity, right? They just kind of hit this point right here, and the effort that they put in is not good enough. It's not getting the return that they want. This is what we would call low producers. Somebody who's not getting the job done. They're cutting corners. They're not getting the quality out that they need to get. The return isn't there on their effort because they're just simply not putting in the effort. They're not putting in hard work. And they stop right here. Now, this is obviously something that hopefully you're not dealing with. If you are, you got to get people in your team, if you're leading them, to put more effort in, obviously, right? We've got to go up this thing till we get to the highest point of return on our effort. So we can't allow low producers in the organization. We can't tolerate that. You've got to be able to put forth the effort. You've got to be able to put the work in to get it done. So keep an eye on your team and your own productivity. Make sure that you're doing what is necessary. You're putting the right effort in so that you can get a return. So low producers stop here. But high producers, they put forth the effort and they're getting a return. Here's where high producers stop. High producers stop right here at critical mass, right at the top. This is when they've known that they've put in the right effort that's getting the right return. They know that they've done exactly what needs to be done. Now, this is what's so fascinating about the law of diminishing productivity. It's just like the law of diminishing returns. As you put forth effort and as that goes, your return actually starts to go down. Meaning this, when you start to overthink, overplan, overanalyze, overcook, when you're just putting all this effort in, your return actually starts going down. See, high producers know exactly when to stop and be done with the task, be done with the project, be done with whatever it is they're doing, and move on to the next thing. But here's the catch, is that most people, here's what I found in 20 years of coaching, most people stop about right here. This is where most people stop. Is right here when they've realized, okay, I've overcooked this thing. I can't give any more effort to it. I've exhausted everything. I can't think another moment about it because it's not going anywhere. Here's the problem. This is the biggest time waster that exists in all of productivity, is right there. Because most people live right here. They live somewhere between this high production point where your effort and your return are at critical mass, but they overcook, overplan, overthink, overanalyze, and they overdo this thing, and then they just kind of get done right around here, but they've wasted all this time. See, high producers, they don't waste time. Once they hit 212 degrees, which is boiling point, and that water is boiling, they're done. They're moving on to the next thing. If your goal is to hit 212 degrees and boil water, for example, then 300 degrees doesn't do anything. If 500 degrees, it's all just wasted energy. It doesn't get anything done. You've already hit 212 degrees right here at boiling point. Then you need to be done. Your water is boiled. Move on to the next project. Start putting in the mac and cheese. Get something else ready to go, right? Your water is boiling. Most people are putting in 500, 600, 700 degrees, and then they kind of get done here. And you know this. You've been a part of a presentation where you've stayed up all night trying to get ready for something, anticipating what it needs to be said and what the audience needs to hear or whatever your team needs to hear or your higher ups or whatever it is that you were doing the presentation for. And so you've put in all this effort just to find out when you actually give the presentation, all they needed to know was this point right here. It was 212 for your audience. They were like, hey, that's good right there. That's all we needed to know. And you're like, what? That's all you needed? I was up all night. I've been stressing about this forever, anticipating everything. I have 48 slides on my presentation, and you just needed to see two? See, what you've done is you've stopped way down here where you put in so much effort, but the return is wasted. And you wasted all this stress and time and energy when all you needed to do was stop right here. So listen, the law of diminishing productivity. You've got to understand that just because you put a lot of effort in doesn't mean that your productivity just always goes up. No, there's a moment where you actually overcook, overthink, overanalyze, overplan, overproduce, and you actually begin to go down. So what I want to challenge you with is this. What areas in your leadership, what areas with your team or your organization are you guys wasting time over here where you're overthinking and overanalyzing and doing all that wasted time stuff over there? You're at 500 degrees when you boiled at 212 and you needed to be done. Highly productive people understand that this is vital to live on the mountaintop. And as soon as you get done with what needs to be done, you move on to the next thing. Guys, I hope this was helpful to you.
I think this was insightful. I'm sure you were able to take a note that if we spend only time without paying energy, without giving energy, without paying attention, we will not be able to be highly productive. So it is great output is not directly proportional to longer hours. This is a nutshell we can say. Now I'm moving to the another section, and let me quickly share my screen with all of you. This tells you and is asking you, I want you to reflect, take a note that why does this balance, why does the balance of our life leisure it fails? And in another way, why the work-life balance fades? What are the traps and what is the solution? We'll see this. And before we move ahead, I again want you to scan the QR code. I'll show you on this slide, which will redirect you to the Google form. And there are two paragraphs of the case. Just read through the case and answer the question. Again, I will share the link also. And in the meantime, you can scan the QR code as well, both ways. Scan the QR code one way. Another way is I am pasting the link in the chat. You can click on the link. This will redirect you to the Google form where you can go and read the case study and answer a couple of questions. And I've pasted it here on the slide also. I'll show you. In the meantime, just try doing those. There are two ways. One is scanning the QR code. Another is I've shared the link on the chat. Click on the link and it will take you to the case study. Just go through the case study and answer the questions. I'll give you 2 minutes to study and answer the questions. Your name is not if going to get judged or reflected, neither your email ID. It is only for the sake of learning purpose that we want you to participate. And I'll show you this on the slide as well. You can see here, I'll read this out for you. This is a case of a high performer. This is about a senior chartered accountant with over 12 years experience was managing multiple clients independently. Over time, this professional has built a strong reputation for reliability and consistency. Deadlines are rarely missed. You can see here, I want you to take a note of these points. Deadlines are rarely missed. So if it is If the person is meeting a deadline, so where is the problem? You need to think about it. So deadlines are really missed, and clients perceive this individual as dependable and committed. On a typical day, the work extends to 11 to 12 hours. The individual begins early, intending to stay ahead of deliverables. However, despite starting on time, it often takes a while to get into a state of deep focus. The day gradually fills in with multiple clients' requirements, calls, ongoing task switching. While working, there's a constant tendency to check the phone, messages, emails, or updates, even during tasks that require concentration. Completed work is frequently revisited, not necessarily due to errors, but to double check and ensure accuracy. We need to reflect, is this a good thing or not so good thing? That you are checking every task which you're performing just to double check. And many of us, we do this. So by the end of the day, although a significant amount of work gets completed, there is a consistent sense of mental exhaustion. Evenings are marked by reduced patience and increased irritability. Despite long working hours during the week, weekends are often used to catch up on pending or delayed tasks. From the outside, this appears to be highly productive and disciplined professional. Internally, however, there are clear signs of cognitive fatigue, reduced efficiency, and lack of recovery. So the question is this, do you think, is it because the person has too many work to perform, too many tasks to perform? Do you think it's a workload problem or it is a problem related to work pattern? The first question is this. There are other questions as well, like what exactly we, because I wanted to reflect. The question is not to, the idea is not to get the right answer, the idea is to hear from you. So what is the answer to the second question? What exactly is causing the exhaustion? The number of hours or the way those hours are being used? If this person continues like this for the next 2 to 3 years, what are the possible consequences? Think about it. And what are the traps? So there are four traps which is covered in the case. Wow, what do you see? How do you see these operating here? And what is a person doing that looks productive, because the person rarely missed the deadlines, is looking very productive, but may actually be, is he reducing his effectiveness? Think about it. So these are points to reflect on. And this is how it looks like. So let me answer the question which is here. First, I want you to just read it, spend 2 minutes, just read the case. Just read the case and see, are we able to relate to the case which we are referring to here? I'm sure most of us, we are able to relate to the case which we are talking about. Because this is a case of a high performance. The guy is very high performer, but then at what cost? So first question, which is this a workload problem or a work pattern problem? So this is primarily a work pattern problem. Take a note. This is not a workload problem. In the context of this case, if you see the individual is delivering consistently, meeting deadlines, is maintaining a reputation of reliability. This clearly indicates that the workload is manageable at a capability level. So, where is the concern? What is the concern? Where is the problem? The issue is in how the work is being executed. How the work is being executed. That is a concern. How it is being executed, how what is doing is continuously switching between tasks. So there is lack of complete focus. The lack of deep sustained focus is not there. Is the focus is not there. And as we can see from the case, there is no real break. So there is no cognitive is anything related to brain, as I said, no cognitive recovery. Because the person is, for example, once he's done the job, done the perform the task, person is just double checking, rechecking, and he is overly engaged. So this is actually, if you see the case, this is a classic case of high performance but then this is achieved through ineffective patterns. So the problem is not that there is too much of work. The problem is that the way the work is being done, this is increasing the cost of performance. So this is not a performance issue, but and this is a sustainability issue. He will not be able to sustain this over a longer period of time, right? Because if this were purely a workload problem, the performance would drop. So this shows that it's not a workload problem. The performance is high, output is very consistent, but then what is happening? What is happening is performance is being sustained at the cost of mental energy. The person is not struggling to deliver, they're struggling to sustain. How long will he continue his performance is a concern, right? So we need to understand that workload in most of our lives is not a concern. The way the work is done, the way the work is being executed, or the work pattern is of concern, right? So we need to see that how are we handling our work? Are we frequently switching between tasks? Are we completely focused even for 2 hours? Or are we taking the breaks in between? We need to reflect on these points, or it is only about that we're working for longer hours under constant pressure, we're feeling overwhelmed. So this is something which is very common across the professionals, I would say, right? Most of us, we fall into this trap. Now the second question was, what exactly is causing the exhaustion? The number of hours or the way the work hours are being used? Definitely, as we saw also, the exhaustion is largely driven by the way the hours are being used. It is not just the number of hours. Why? Because the person is frequently switching between the tasks. This increases the mental load and this actually reduces our processing efficiency. And we can see in the case that there are a lot of interruption, phones, messages. So this attention is fragmented. The person is getting interrupted. So this prevents the focused work. And this leads to incomplete cognitive cycles, we call as. Cognitive cycle is when you start working and when you end uh, complete, when you finish the task. This is called as one cognitive cycle. But in sense, because of the attention fragmentation, the person is not able to finish the task. And there is no structured break. So the brain it remains in a prolonged state of stress. It's not getting reset. And revisiting the completed work, this consumes additional mental energy. You're just rechecking, double checking without any proportional value. So the point we're driving home is continuous load, it reduces the efficiency of our thinking brain. And this leads to fatigue, this leads to slower thinking because it is not the longer hours alone, but the high friction hours that actually creates exhaustion there. Now the third question was that if this continues for a longer time, say for example for the next 2 to 3 years, what are the possible consequences? What may happen? So what may happen is like there may be decline in the quality of decision making. There would be more chances of making error, and the efficiency is reduced despite the longer hours, and the growth will be plateaued because of the reactive work cycle. So it may affect your relationship, it may affect your mental well-being. We may get more irritable if we remain in this kind of state for a longer time. May also result to burnout, message. If I have to say in terms of life ledger, it is like, what is burnout? It's like accumulated stress liability, which shows in our life ledger. Or the another consequence could be reduced ability to sustain, be focused, and chronic stress. It elevates the stress hormone, which is the cortisol. And as I said, this impairs recovery and cognition. And if this continues for a longer time, high effort without the peace credit, if the peace is not getting credited without the recovery, this leads to performance degradation. It will not improve. Performance will further degrade. It will not improve. Right. So there are four traps, which is very much clear, very very clear, and we will be deep diving into the those traps also. So first is urgency loop. Second one is, I'm just naming, but then I'll show you the slide and I'll explain you what are these. So there are four traps. One is urgency loop. Urgency loop means when we get addicted to deadlines. So there is continuous cycle of deliverables. There's no recovery window. Second one is approval loop, which is more about we are always in a state to please our clients. We should be pleasing our clients definitely, but then don't give them a feel that you're always available. This is more about responsive behavior, right? You should have a slot. You should have a time gap wherein you will respond to emails, wherein you will connect with them. But then if you're easily available every time, they'll take you for granted. So that is called as approval loop. Perfection loop is rechecking completed work just to be sure, just to double check. And the fourth loop is attention fragmentation. But what are you doing there? You are frequently switching between the tasks because you're getting interrupted to message, phone calls, notifications. And these traps are not isolated, they are actually reinforcing each other. And when they're reinforcing each other, they're creating a compounding effect. So there are four traps which we are talking about here. And the fifth one is what looks productive but is actually reducing effectiveness. There are many behaviors if you see in the case. This appears to be very productive but are counterproductive, like constant responsiveness. You're feeling very efficient, but then it is breaking your deep focus. Task switching, which is multitasking. You're thinking you're doing many tasks at one point of time, but then that is a complete myth. This creates activity, but there is no progress. Rechecking your work excessively, this giving you the assurance, but it's actually draining your energy. So there are many things which is sounding as if the person is very effective, how it is not. The point we're driving home here is any activity does not mean you're productive. If you're busy, does not mean you're effective. Because most of us we think that if we are busy, we are effective. No, it is not. From the outside, this looks like very hard. The person is hardworking, but then from inside, it is inefficient work. And over time, inefficient work always leads to exhaustion, right? So now let's talk about these four loops. What are these four loops and why these loops are important? Let me share my next slide. Here, you can see here, this is not the work, nor it's a behavior pattern driving the imbalance. So what are those behavior patterns? There are four different loops as I was sharing. First is urgency loop. I'll quickly share what are these in more details. As I said, the first one is urgency loop, which is more about deadline addiction, which is more like carry forward entries. So in this, you may or we may look very busy or productive. However, we may not be actually productive. We may be reducing effectiveness in this case. Because this loop, this is something like it tells us, because in our profession, I would say, as I was sharing earlier also, deadlines are not temporary emergencies. They're going to stay there because they rotate endlessly. You finished a massive year-end audit, GST or quarterly sales tax filing begins immediately. The sales tax deadlines pass and the corporate season starts. The finishing line is just an illusion because that rotates endlessly. So the deadline is there. It is going to stay. However, and the physiological toll of moving the finishing deadline is severe. We all know. So when we operate in a constant state of urgency, our body is continuously pumping out cortisol. Cortisol is what? It is as I said, the primary stress hormone, which is meant for emergencies. Because evolutionary, if you see, cortisol is meant to make you survive from the physical threat. But if it is the chronic low-grade cortisol, it elevates from stress, poor sleep. It prevents the body from recovering and leading to systemic wear and tear. So the point I'm making here is you're not just working more, you're never switching off neurologically. So what should we do? We'll see that as well. We'll see the solutions also. Now, second is approval loop. That is, which is more about responsiveness becomes our identity in this case. Saying yes to all the requests. Saying yes is equal to professionalism with him. And if there is delay in the response, we get guilt. We feel guilt. So delayed response is equal to guilt, which should not be the case. Why we say yes to all the requests? Because this triggers dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. This is a feel good hormone. Just to make you understand, this triggers dopamine driven reward loop. And we this like a loop which runs and we want to do it more. We want to say yes because it is giving us a feel good factor. You feel productive. Okay, when you're saying yes, we can do it. You feel productive when responding, not when you're doing the actual work, not when you're doing the deep work. So what is happening here? You become very busy in responding to the texts or to emails, but then you're not effective. Third is perfection loop. You can see here, perfection loop, it is more about, it is like zero error conditioning, or you're over auditing your mental energy. So in our professions, we all know mistakes are very costly. So our brain learns, don't miss anything by default, right? But then when there is too much of mental load or cognitive load, what happens? Our working memory, it gets overloaded. And once our working memory gets overloaded, we make slow decisions because we are in a constant rechecking loops. The outcome is what? You're investing more time. You're thinking more time is better quality, which is not. More time is not equal to better quality after a threshold, as we saw in the law of diminishing productivity. Right? Now, the fourth one is attention fragmentation, or these are unstructured work days, I would say, or there is a leakage of cognitive capital. So, what is happening here? Our day is not planned. It is interrupted by calls, messages, urgent client requests, and every interruption which we get, it causes attention residue. These are like carry forward entries. So, what is happening whenever you're switching from task A to task B and you want to come back to task A? You're doing a task, say, for example, task A, you got a phone call and you're thinking, okay, it was a phone call of only 2 minutes. I'll quickly come return to my work. But then when you're getting back to the work, at the back of the mind, you're still thinking about the phone call which you had. For example, I'm in a state of deep work. I got a call from a friend, and my friend said, okay, let's go for lunch outside. I said, okay, we'll go. And I just kept the phone. But then still, I'm thinking, okay, which sandwich I'm going to order? So it is taking me another 15 minutes to get into a state of deep focus. So it is not a wastage of only 2 minutes, but then with that 2 minutes of call, I have my brain is taken 15 minutes to come back to the deep state of work. And this kind of how many interruptions do we get during the entire day? Just think about it and multiply this 2 minutes for 2 minutes, 15 minutes. You can, I will show you the video also, and you can see that how this wastes our cognitive capital, how this leaks our cognitive capital. So, because our brain takes time to refocus, this reduces the efficiency of our brain. So, what is happening? I'm working for a longer hour, but with fragmented attention. So, I want to ask you here the question you can see here, which loops are you continuously debiting from your life? I repeat, which loops are you continuously debiting from your life? And which habits are you intentionally rating back? Think about it, because I'm sure you will relate to all this and you must have taken this as a part and parcel of our life. That this is something which is normal. No, it is normal. It is not normal. And we can definitely find solutions to all these loops, to all these work patterns. Because awareness is the first level, the first entry. Action, you need to take the action, which will be the second level of entry. And having a balance is actually the goal. That how will you have a balanced life better. Okay, with this, I will show you the slide which tells you about the attention residue. As I said, the cost of fragmented attention. So you can see here on the slide itself that this is just an example. You are reviewing an audit file. You are in a state of defocus. Your phone rings and your defocuses broken. So now you're attempting to get back to the fight. Would you? How long did you take? As I said, if it is a call of 2 minutes, it takes around 15 minutes to get back to the state of complete focus, right? Um, so you can see here, when you are focused, when you are in a state of complete focus, you can you have less mental load. You can finish your work faster. With fragmented attention, where attention is scattered, your thinking is not deep, it is shallow, and you're constantly getting the context, you're constantly trying to restart the work, and the mental load is very high. For example, if I tell you, I'm giving you one of the example, I would say, how the interruptions destroys our memory, our context memory. For example, if I read a short scenario, I'm just reading it, just listen to it carefully. For example, a client has a total revenue of 48 lakhs, expenses are 32 lakhs, out of expenses, 5 lakhs is depreciation, and the tax rate is 30%. What is the approximate tax payable? I'm sure most of you will be able to answer this correctly. Now I'm giving you same situation, another state. I'm reading the same scenario. A client has total revenue of 48 lakh. Now I want to ask you, what did you have for your breakfast today? Or what are you planning to have in the dinner today? Another is expenses are 32 lakhs. Now I want you to think about your last WhatsApp message. Now, third statement is out of expenses, 5 lakhs is depreciation. And I want to know, when is your next meeting scheduled? Okay, let me tell you, the tax rate is 30%. Now quickly calculate the tax payable. Which one you think you can do it quickly? Definitely the first with focused condition, not with the fragmented one. Why? Because more interruptions, it leads to more errors. And you will be asking me same thing, since uh, when I will be sharing the scenario in face to face, you will be asking me, okay, what did you say? Repeat that. You will ask me to repeat. The numbers is not changed here. Your intelligence is not changed, but your context broke. In real work, you're not just solving problems, you're holding context in your mind. I hope now you can relate to. So this is what happens when you are getting interrupted. So the attention residue is the hidden cost of interruptions. You can see here. So attention, this is one of the very important concept which I want to share. This is like unclosed mental entries, attention residue. This is a state where the brain takes significant time to refocus and regain deep concentration after being interrupted. Every time focus is broken, such as by a phone call, WhatsApp message, or urgent client request, it leaves a residue that reduces the brain's efficiency. So, attention residue has huge impact on professional performance. It leads to reduced cognitive performance. The brain has to reset every time. And the research indicates that if the focus switch paused, it can take several minutes to return to the same level of deep focus once an interruption has ended. So, this is how can we overcome this? We can overcome this drain caused by this attention residue by attention blocking. Blocking the solution. Attention blocking should be implemented, which involves dedicated 60 to 90 or 120 minutes of uninterrupted deep work to allow the thinking brain to function without constant reset. I want to repeat this because this is really important. How can we overcome this attention residue? Because in this fast changing world, we are bombarded with information. which is coming to our mobile phones to us in fraction of seconds. So what should we, how can we overcome? We can overcome this by blocking the attention. How can we block? We should have the dedicated slot of or block of, say for example, 60 to 90 minutes of uninterrupted deep work, which will allow our thinking brain to function without constant reset. We will not lose the context of the task, and we can complete our task maybe within 2 hours or 3 hours, or within that time block which we have picked up, which usually with fragmented attention may take even 12 hours, may take even 2 days. So attention blocking is the solution. So what you're seeing here, these are not just habits, the four loops. These are actually patterns, and this keeps repeating. So we need to break the loop at the system level. I will show you again. Another is, I want to ask you a question here, that you saw there are four different loops. Just scan the QR code or join at slido.com and enter the code #1202910. And I want to ask you a question. Out of these four urgency loops, out of these four urgency loops, approval loop, perfection loop, attention fragmentation, just note for yourself which trap is affecting you the most. Just write which one is the one which resonates with you the most. And another question I will add here, which one you think is normal? Which one you think is the normal? Can we see some response here? Can we see some response? Out of the four loops, which is urgency, approval, perfection, attention fragmentation, which trap is affecting you the most? I would say maybe all four in some cases, maybe one or two in some cases. So can we get some response here? You need to just scan the QR code or go to sire.com and enter the code #12012029110. Okay, we'll come back to this poll again. And now another is, I want to ask you, why do even the smartest of people, they get stuck in these patterns? Right? Because these are loops. These are something which has this, for example, this triggers dopamine, which gives you, for example, pleasing our clients, saying yes to all the requests of clients. It makes us feel good. This we have done this so many times that this has got hardwired in our brain. Right? So that's the reason that most of us, we are falling to these kind of loops or these kind of traps. So, what are the solutions we can see here? The solution is, first, for the first, it is urgency loop, because we are living in an era of deadlines where something or the other is always there. So, what we should do? We should set internal deadlines for ourselves, which may be 24 hours before or maybe 48 hours before. So, this this will make us more productive. This will keep our cortisol beyond a threshold. So this artificial deadlines and recovery windows is something which is very, very important, because we cannot remove the deadlines, but then we can control how we respond to them. So setting the internal deadlines 28 to 48 hours earlier, this creates buffer blocks, which allows our brain to rest. Because if we are in a continuous state of urgency, the cortisol gets elevated and this prevents the recovery. So if everything is urgent, our brain never exits a survival mode. So you can imagine the kind of impact it will have on our health. Now the solution to second one, wherein we are in approval loop. So what we can do, we can set the expectation of our client, and we should be more structured when we are responding to the client. If you're available all the time, you're not professional. This is unsustainable accessibility. So what we should do, we should define our response windows. Like it, and it may happen 2 to 3 times in a day or 3 to 4 times in a day. So you can use the proactive communication like I will review this and I will revert by 5 p.m. today, right? Or maybe by 5:30 p.m. today, depending on uh, what you're reviewing or what you're working on. So if you're constantly getting responsive, this this gives you a feel good factor because this is dopamine driven checking behavior. There's more like addiction. Dopamine plays very important role in getting you addicted. So in this case, what we need to do, we need to define the response window. So because if you don't set expectations, the client will set for you. That's really important. Our third one, solution to perfection loop. If you are you can't be perfect in all the tasks. Not every task needs the same level of perfection. So what you can do, you can categorize the work. It could be high risk, for example. If it is very high risk work, then high level of precision is required. If it is a routine task, then sufficient accuracy is enough. So overloading your working memory, it reduces the efficiency and increases fatigue. Perfection is very good. It is powerful, but only when applied selectively. Don't apply it to all the tasks. I hope this is making sense and you will be able to relate to this. So the fourth one is attention fragmentation. We have been seeing what it is, attention residue, attention fragmentation. We also saw that the solution to attention fragmentation is attention blocking. So which is our biggest loss is not the time, but then the loss is when our attention is broken. So what we should do, we should have the no interruption blocks or attention blocks. It may be for 60, 90, 120 minutes. So what we can do, we can batch the calls, we can batch our emails or WhatsApp, right? Because every interruption which we are getting when we are working, it leaves the attention residue, which is like unclosed mental entries, and this reduces cognitive performance. So we don't need more hours. The hours are there. We need uninterrupted hours. It is not the hours only, but then we need hours which where we're completely focused. We need uninterrupted hours. So if we integrate the insights here from all the four solutions which we have been discussing, so I'm sure you must have noticed something. None of these solutions reduce your work. You're not reducing the amount of work, but then they're changing how your brain experiences the work. The goal is here not to escape the work or work less. The goal is to escape the patterns or the loops that makes work exhausting. You don't need a new schedule. What you need a new way of working. You don't need a new schedule, I'm repeating. You need a new way of working, right? So I'm sure now you're aware of this and you will be able to implement this in your daily life. Uh, Now I'm showing you something which is like a small case, but we can relate to. I'm taking two different days of the same person, same intelligence because the person is same and same work, but then you will see the output is different. Why? Because in one day you can see here the person is in a regulated state. The person is completely focused. His starts work fresh. He's picking this one task, completing, finishing, and he's taking mindful breaks. So the result is output is high, feels good, better work. Now, same person, another day, the person is getting interrupted. The person is working for a longer time and starts already thinking about the pending work. So what is the result? Result is more time, but then output is less. So now you can see we don't need only the hours, we need uninterrupted hours if we want to be highly productive. So we don't need a new system. We actually need new way of working. Now I will take you to the balancing framework that how can we balance our work, and I'll take you to the slide there. There are three different levels of balance and three different levels of life leisure balancing framework. I'll quickly share and I'll show you. The last section of the webcast, but then really important, I would say. There are three different levels of balance. Life, this is the life leisure balancing framework. So this talks about that we need to balance our ledger at life ledger at three different levels. What are these levels? First is micro balance, which happens on a daily basis. Second is structural balance, which happens on a weekly basis. And third one is identity balance, which is more about mindset, which is more about how we see ourselves. What is our identity? And if you fix only at one level, you will not be able to balance your life leisure. The imbalance will return. But then when you align all three, the balance becomes sustainable. And we want balance which is sustainable, right? So sustainable performance, it requires managing your work across three distinct levels of architecture. So these are, as you can see here, these are three different levels: how you manage your day, how you structure your week, and how you define yourself beyond work. Three different things we're talking about. Let me put this on the slideshow. So first one I'm referring to is the micro balance, which is short-term recovery. So there are two different strategies which we can apply. So these are like, one is focus cycles, another is strategic breaks. We've covered this, but then we want to quickly show you that how we can balance. So the first one is, as you saw, the first, as I said, micro is like, if your daily if your day is full of interruptions, unfinished tasks, no recovery, so your mind carries that into the evening. So what we can do, we can apply two strategies. And this is, one is focus cycles. So our brain is not designed to focus continuously for hours. Our brain works best in ultradian rhythms, that is 90-minute cycles. After that, the attention drops and our tiredness or fatigue rises. So what we can do, we can work in 60 to 90 minutes focus blocks where there is no notification, no interruptions, no phone calls, but then we are deeply focused. Right? So this, we need to manage our energy within the day. This is something which we can implement on a daily basis. So when we're completely focused, the completion is fast. When you manage your day well, so deadlines don't expand endlessly. So micro balance, this ensures that the deadlines don't consume your entire day. Now the second strategy is strategic breaks. So breaks restores the efficiency of the thinking brain. So even a break of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, this improves our cognitive performance, our mental performance. So breaks are not a luxury, they are a performance tool. So these 2 points are really important. Now let's talk about the second level, wherein we're talking about structural balance. Okay, by the way, right now, if I have to ask you, how many of you take proper breaks during work? Just think about it. And how many feel tired even after working long hours? So, do you think is it when you're working for longer hours with breaks, you don't feel tired or you feel tired? Think about it so that you can implement this. So we need to be honest. Do you really take proper breaks during our work? A mindful break of even 5 minutes or 10 minutes when you're working for extended hours, that really makes a difference because that puts our brain into recovery mode. Now, the second one, the structural balance, the difference between exhaustion and the control is how we are organizing our week. So I've given you two examples here. One is the unstructured C, another is the structured one. The structured one is batching all the work, groups, similar tasks together, for example, emails, calls, reviews, to prevent focus switch cost. And there is no interruption zone. So blocking 2 to 3 specific slots per week for deep work. So this is a structured one. So what is the result? Result is that you're working for 8 to 9 hours, feels in control, high accuracy. Right? The unstructured one, you're getting constantly interrupted. You're working for longer hours, but then still feels behind, high error risk you are at. So how to manage this? So this is actually about this not about how much you work. This is about how your work is structured. So batching is very effective way to do all the similar tasks together. So this actually this enhances the efficiency. This reduces the cognitive load. So switching between tasks feels productive, but it actually reduces your efficiency. So task switching creates attention residue, which is multitasking. Because as we learned that the brain takes time to refocus, which leads to productivity loss. So what we can do, we can batch the similar tasks, emails, calls, reviews together. And as we discussed that there should be no meeting or no interruption zones. So if your day is completely open, if your day is not structured, your focus will always be broken. So we need to plan our day, structure our day. So continuous interruptions because it reduces the deep work capacity. We should be blocking 2 to 3 slots per week minimum for deep work. And you can inform your clients, you can inform your colleagues, team members in advance that I'm completely focused for these 2 hours. I don't want to get interrupted. So we need to structure our uh, week. We need to design our work around deadlines instead of reacting to them. We need to batch our work, as I said, less of switching, no interruption zones. So when work is structured, you create space for downtime, for creating more peace to your life leisure. So structural balance ensures that deadline don't consume your entire week. And you can see the case here as an example, which is shown on the slide. Now the third one we are referring to, third one is the identity balance. What happens here? The burnout is amplified when your identity is socially tied to your profession. So what is the point we're driving here? Many professionals don't just do work, they become their work. Burnout, it's just amplified when your identity is only work. So the point we're driving here is I am not just a CA. You are not just a CA. You are a learner, you are a parent, you are a fitness enthusiast, you are a friend. You play multiple roles. So we need to grow beyond your identity, which we have created for ourselves. It's a very important point. So identity fusion with work. If you're fusing your identity with your work, this increases your stress, this increases your emotional exhaustion, and physiological detachment is very much important here because this will improve your recovery. You are playing multi as a human being. What do we do? We play multiple roles. So if your identity is only CA, you will never switch off. You will never ever switch off. We need to diversify our role. This will reduce our burnout risk. So just think about it. Apart from being a CA, what are the other two roles that really matters to you? This just write it for yourself. Think about. I'm asking you to think about only two roles as of now that really matters to you. Maybe you're a son, you're a daughter, you're a father or a mother, you're a learner, As I said, maybe you're a fitness enthusiast, and there are multiple roles which we play. So we need to diversify the role. So balance does not come from time. It comes from the identity expansion. When we're expanding our identity, then we can find the real balance. And on the right side, you can see, just to make it real, we've put a matrix there, and there are three different areas I've entered. One is work. I want you to reflect on what is the current reality. What is the current reality of work? Is it very exhausting, very tiring, or the balanced? And how do you see your work after this webcast? What will be your in the coming days? What will be your ideal work like? Do you want to credit more of peace, or you want to debit more of stress? Do you want to manage your capital core assets, energy and attention, or you think that these loops, the four loops which we learned, is part of our life? Think about it and just write it for yourself. Health. What is your current reality? And how do you see your health in the coming days? Family. I want you to reflect on what is the current reality of the family, how well you're connected. Are you carrying your work and your mental bandwidth even when you're not working physically at the dinner table? Or you want it to be completely to yourself, physically, mentally present when you're with your family, the ideal self in the coming days? Just think about it. Take out a minute and just balance this audit grid. This is the audit grid, and I wanted to make this real for you. So, taking the learnings from this webcast, you can write the current reality and as of now, and the ideal one, how you see yourself in the coming days. Don't overthink, just write honestly. We can see where is the biggest gap, because awareness is the first step. Through this webcast, we have created the awareness in you, but then the change happens when you act on it. And change will only happen when you will act on it. And it is in your hands. You can very much do that. So, if I have to integrate these three levels of balance daily, if we talk about, it is about managing energy. Weekly, if we have to talk about managing the structure. And identity is managing the mindset. How do we see ourselves? So we need to diversify our roles. So if you fix only one level, imbalance will return. There will not be any balance. But then if you align all these three, then the balance becomes sustainable, something which is very long lasting, right? So do we actually need a new schedule? Think about it. Do we actually need a new schedule? We don't. We don't. We need a new operational system. We need to replace the autopilot system, which has become a part of our life ledger. We need to replace that with the new way, that is a conscious system, because our current system is driven by urgency and client pleasing. It is more about dividing 24 hours into the slots of 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of recreation. And all these are myth, because we all learned that what is more important is managing two core capitals, which is energy and attention blocking. What is important is not the workload, is not the concern. What is concern? The way we are operating. So we need to break the patterns and we need to work differently. We need to change the state from the survival brain, from being in a prolonged state of stress. We need to regulate ourselves. We need to take mindful break. And we don't need only the hours, we need uninterrupted hours where we can deeply focus and complete our tasks within a smaller duration of time. Earlier, we were more focused on the diminishing returns that, okay, I have to stretch today, I'll stay back, and I'll finish my task. It is not, it is only a myth. The result is about sustaining the performance, sustaining the high performance. And it can only happen if we are able to manage our core capital, which is energy and attention. I, with this, we have come to the closer, and we have covered very important points. As I said, we have made an attempt to create an awareness that these are the points which will help you to predict more peace and balance our life leisure. So with this, we are closing, and I'm ready to take the questions if there is any. Any questions? Feel free to ask. I'll wait for a few more minutes. I want to hear if you have any questions. Feel free to ask. In the meantime, the points which we shared and the important points, as I said, the core capital we talked about is the energy and the attention. We talked about mental bandwidth. And as professionals, we don't realize that how much cognitive capital is leaking every day. So we need to understand that these are cognitive capital and we need to reduce the wastage of that cognitive capital. We need to have a balance between energy and attention, right? We talked about all these in great detail. And we also learned about the law of diminishing productivity, which talks about that it is not the hours what matters. What matters is the uninterrupted hours. So productivity isn't about how long you work, but it's about how well your mind can perform. So we this concept was something which was insightful and a complete paradigm shift. I'm sure you must have got after this webcast. So, and there are four different loops which we talked about: urgency loop, approval loop, perfection loop, attention fragmentation. So we also learned that it is not just the workload, but it is the behavioral pattern which is driving the imbalance. So we need to fix the pattern. We need to figure out the solution for these loops. We need to break these loops. We also talked about attention residue, which is something which is eroding our productivity. Very important concept. And then we talked about three different levels of balance, which is happening on a daily basis, weekly basis, and is about mindset. Daily was micro balance, structural balance, weekly, and entity balance is about mindset. And we can't just balance one at one level and leave the other two. We need to balance all the three levels so that we can have a sustainable, productive, or a professional life with high or with maximum output. So this is and this is what we learned, as I said, that this is more about the awareness. Awareness is the first step, but then change will only happen if you act on it. So I would request all of you to start acting on the learnings which we gathered today. So that's all from my side. Any questions, please feel free to ask. If there is any question, please share. Or anything you want to add to. Any questions on the sections which we covered today? Tech support, you can share if there is any question from the participants. No. No. Okay, there's a question and very interesting one. Why are we lagging so behind Pakistan in happiness quotient? In other words, what should we change in our lifestyle? I repeat, the question is really interesting. Why are we lagging so behind Pakistan in happiness quotient? In other words, what should we change in our lifestyle? Okay. First, what is happiness? Happiness is only a state of mind. Okay. Happiness is what? It's a state of mind. So when you're saying that we're lagging behind, I mean, I'm not compare ourselves with Pakistan or any other country, but then what we should be changing is first is the contentment. What is the level of contentment we have? Okay. What is, are we contented at a lower level, in the medium level, or at a very high level? That is something which is related to this, I would say. Another is when you are deeply focused, I would request you to also, or maybe I can also share some material on deep flow. Okay, let me answer the other question is also there. I'll take that. Okay, good. Another request is, ma'am, requested to share the slides to keep reminding us often on track correction. Sure, I'll share the slides with BSD team and they will share this with you. And thank you. I'm glad that you asked this question. I was going to the previous question wherein it says that, in other words, what we should change in our lifestyle. In our lifestyle, see, defocus is something which differentiates you from others. If you are working for a particular block of time in a state of defocus or deflow, then you can outshine others. You can be successful 10x, 10 times. And this is not a rocket science. This is about reaching a state wherein you forget the passage of time. You don't even keep a track of time, right? You're so much engrossed, you're so much involved, and you do when, if you're working on something which you're really passionate about, you lose the track of time. So what are you getting into? You're in a state of defocus. And if you're in a state of defocus for something which is definitely productive, so there you can, and it gives you a feel good factor. It gives you a satisfaction, and definitely you can enhance your happiness quotient. By the way, otherwise also happiness is only a state of mind. How can we watch again this video? Okay, I'll share the link if you want here, and I'm very happy that you're asking this. I'll share the link quickly. The YouTube, it was, I picked it from the YouTube. I think you want this law of diminishing return, right? Or the deep work. For the deep work also, I have a link I will share. I'm just sharing this for the deep work. This is the link for the deep work I've shared in the chat. Glad that you asked. I'll share you another link which I shared with all of you. That was law of diminishing productivity. Give me a moment. Let me take out the link quickly. Okay, got it. The another one is on, okay, no other question. Okay, another link also I've shared. This was on law of diminishing productivity. Okay, with this, I'm closing this webcast and thank you so much for this wonderful, amazing participation during the webcast. And because I could see most of you, you were active learners. Only request is, we have done something to create or to make you aware of the facts. Is the change can only happen, as I said, if you act on it. So I request all of you to act on it, and wish you good luck in your professional life, personal life. And I'm really thankful to BSC team for this opportunity. Thankful to tech support team for all the help and support. With this, we're closing. Thank you so much. Have a great evening ahead. Bye bye.